Hello, everyone. We're going to be starting a new chapter today about the Byzantines, Russians, and Turks who would all three interact sometime between 500 and 1500 BC. The theme of this unit would be about evaluating the rise and fall of the Byzantine Empire, and the writing prompt, so you're aware of it from now, is what was most responsible for the strength and decline of the Byzantine Empire. You're going to be given a menu of sorts. Um, with a few specific types of factors for strength and a few specific types for decline, and you have to pick one of each and kind of explain why that is the most important event responsible for either the strength or the decline of the empire. Those are going to be your learning objectives, and you have that in your unit plan. These are the 14 vocab words that you are assigned for this chapter, and you're going to be expected to do the vocab assignment like we do for every chapter. For section 1, we created a foldable in class that has these 6 specific topics, and we're going to be going through each one individually. Topic number 1 is about setting the stage of the Byzantine Empire. This part of history starts when the Roman Empire crumbles at the end of the 5th century, when a group of people known as the Germanic tribes invade it. And with their invasion, this entire empire ends up splitting exactly in half. You have the Western Empire and the Eastern Empire. The Eastern Empire moves its capital from Rome to the Greek city of Byzantium, and they would end up changing its name from Byzantium to Constantinople after the emperor that was in power at the time, who was known as Constantine, and he really wanted his capital to be named after him. This Eastern Empire would last for about 1,000 years after the Western Empire collapses, and is going to survive for a lot of different years. So, according to this map, you will see just about what is the extent of the Eastern Roman Empire before 1008 AD. I'm sorry, BC, and then the extent of it after, after people like Justinian. Emperor Justinian saw himself as an emperor of all of Rome, and he wanted to bring back land that was once controlled by Rome so that he can kind of unify the glory of that empire. He took to the throne in about 527 BC, and he was able, with the help of his army, to take control of North Africa, Rome, Italy, and parts of Spain. He ruled with absolute power, and he was the type of leader that believed in controlling both the state, which is the government and the politics, and the church. And he created a panel of legal experts that would regulate his entire society. This panel of experts created one code of law that would become known as Justinian Code, and it's made up of 4 different volumes. The first volume is known as Code, and it contained about 5,000 of the Roman laws that were in operation during the Roman Empire that he felt were also beneficial, so he readopted them. Digest quotes and summarizes the opinions of Rome's greatest legal thinkers about the law, and that one book alone is made up of 50 different volumes, so it's a bunch of interpretations of law. Institutes is a textbook that told law students how to use the law, so it's kind of like a guidebook. And Novellae is contained all the legislations that were newly passed after 534 BC. And in these 4 works, he answered many different questions about marriage, slavery, property inheritance, women's rights, criminal justice, and a whole bunch of other different topics. And this code is going to remain in use for over 900 years, well past Justinian's death. He built specifically in his capital the city of Constantinople, and his goal was to rebuild the city of Constantinople and rebuild the fortifications along the western land border. So, what he did was he built a 14-mile stone wall along the coastline to keep it safe and alongside the western land border. He focused on churches because he had the opinion that churches were the most visible sign of the close connection between the church and the state in his empire. And he specifically built one of the greatest churches in history, known as the Hagia Sophia, which translates to holy wisdom and grace, which is shown right there. He built baths, aqueducts, which are ways of storing water, and it has pipes that lead to different parts of the city, law schools, law courts, and hospitals. He also tried to preserve as much as he can the Greco-Roman culture, which is a combination of both Greek and Roman. In his society, education was highly valued, especially learning the classics like Greek and Latin grammar, philosophy, Homer's literature, geometry from people like Euclid, which we talked about in chapter 5, history from Herodotus, which we also covered in chapter 5, and medicine. He established a main street known as the Messe, or known as the Middle Way, that had merchant stalls and products from all over the world, like Asia, Africa, and Europe. And you could see that this really was the center of commerce and trade in his civilization. He provided his people with a bunch of free entertainment. Free entertainment keeps the people happy, keeps them satisfied with you as an emperor, like the Hippodrome, where they held wild chariot races and performance acts that could be viewed by 60,000 people at once, which is a pretty impressive entertainment. Yeah, like all other great civilizations, every civilization is going to fall. And before and after his death, his empire is going to suffer from a bunch of different things. One of them, some of them might be street riots, religious quarrels, palace intrigues, and scandals, and foreign dangers. One specific threat that he faced was the plague of Justinian, where the plague, which is a disease that kills, that is an epidemic that kind of spreads quickly, came to Constantinople on ships from India that was infested with rats. These rats, infiltrated the water sources, and people that drank the water became sick. And in 542 alone, almost 10,000 people were dying each day from this epidemic. And it kept breaking out every few years until about 700 when it finally faded. Foreign dangers included attacks from the east and the west. They were attacked by the Lombards from the west, and the Avars, Slavs, and Bulgars from the north. Persians from the east, Arab Muslims in 674 and 717, Turks, who would come into the picture in about the 11th century. And so his empire, this whole entire Byzantine Empire, is going to shrink under the impact of all these foreign attacks. And by 1340, it was really reduced to just the tip of land called Anatolia. Constantinople as a city will hold out for 100 years because of how strong its 14-mile wall was that surrounded it, and because of its strategic location. And it would not fall until 1453 against the Ottomans. During this time, Christianity began to develop differently in the Western and Eastern Roman empires because of distance and because there was barely any communication between the two regions. In Eastern Hemisphere, you developed what we call Eastern Christianity. It's based on early church fathers like Saint Basil and Saint John Chrysostom, who was the patriarch. They believed in icons, which is the idea of creating images of what Jesus or what God could be and kind of praying to those icons, even though those icons had been banned from use by an emperor known as Emperor Leo III, because he saw it as idol worship. This Eastern Christianity would end up developing into what is now called Orthodox Church in the East. The Western Christianity, which was in Western Empire, which would collapse far earlier than the Eastern Empire, supported the ban on idol, and the Pope excommunicated, which means he declared the emperor an outcast from the church. And this would become the Roman Catholic Church that still stands today. This twist on a Venn diagram is going to show you the difference between Roman Catholicism versus Eastern Orthodox. Roman Catholicism believes that services should be conducted in the original language of Latin. Pope has authority over every member of the church. Pope even has authority over all kings and emperors. Priests may not marry, and divorce is not permitted. Eastern Orthodox, though, which developed in Eastern Roman Empire, believed that services should be conducted in local languages so people have more of a way of identifying with the faith. Patriarchs and bishops had the church as a group. There is no one central power. The emperor has more power than even the church officials. priests can marry, and divorce is going to be allowed under certain conditions. Yet, despite these differences, both of these faiths are going to base their faith on the Jesus in the Bible. Sacraments, which are rituals like baptism, would be used. Religious leaders could be named both priests and bishops in both of these sects of Christianity, and that both of them would seek to convert people to their faith. So, what you guys are going to be doing now as an extension of this activity, and we're going to be doing most of this in class, the rest of it will be assigned as homework, is you're going to be summarizing and examining a whole bunch of different maps of Constantinople and analyzing how is the geographic location of Constantinople was beneficial to the Byzantine Empire. You will also be given a bunch of excerpts from historical documents so that you can assess why Constantinople as a capital was really, really important to the success of the Byzantine Empire. Okay, so your job once you get this case study in class is to use the maps in the excerpts to look at the geographic location of Constantinople. You're going to read through the documents. You have documents A to F, which means you have 6 different documents to look at. And each of these documents, whether it's a map or a paragraph, has corresponding questions that are assigned to it. And towards the end of your activity, you're going to create a bubble map in which you list all the reasons why the geographic location of Constantinople was strategic. And then you're going to be creating a paragraph using 5 sentence stems that are provided to complete your thoughts on Constantinople.